Meeting of the Humboldt Unified School District Governing Board. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate everybody being here. Everybody hear me okay? Or, yeah? Good? Okay. How's that? Is that better even? All right. Okay. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Secretary, would you please call roll?
Good evening, President Adler,
Here.
Vice President Ruwald,
Here.
Board Member Roth,
Here.
Board Member Wolcott,
Here.
Board Member Mizon.
Here.
Let the record be stated we have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Moving on to our agenda review. Mr. Superintendent, are there any changes to the agenda?
No changes.
No changes. In that case, I will need a motion on the agenda.
I move we accept the agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Roth, a second by Mr. Ruwald. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next is our current events. Board members, anything to report from this past month? Current events wise? Yeah, Ms. Mazan.
So I had the opportunity to visit a few campuses actually. I visited Coyote Springs, and it was just nice to walk through the school and the campus and to kind of see firsthand in action what's happening on campus. And then right before spring break, seems like forever ago, I went to Humboldt Elementary School and was able to participate in the Read Across America. And that was, a fun event. It's always a really good fun event. So
Great. Thank you so much. Anyone else? Mrs. Roth.
I was also at Humboldt L for Read Across America. We did some Sora stuff for all the kids, and we did some reading, and it was a great event as usual.
Great. Thank you.
And then I also was able to attend the visit to Coyote Springs, which is great to finally get back in the classrooms, back talking with the teachers, and had some good conversations with some of the students around what was going on there, and then also with some of the teachers. It was a great time. So, and thank you, Coyote Springs, for welcoming us back. So.
And then I also participated in Read Across America, although I went to Mountain View Elementary School. I was able to read to 4 classes. It was the first time I participated in the event. It was wonderful, and I can't wait to do it again.
Yeah, it's fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Thank you all. What I wanted to report on is more of an announcement than anything else. I don't have any current events for myself, but as you probably know, we're in the midst of a superintendent search, and lots of stuff's happening sort of behind the scenes, getting prepared. The application has been out and available for folks to apply to, and next steps are going to be, there's going to be a community forum for anybody and everybody to attend, and that's going to be on Thursday, March 30th from 6 to 7:30. That's a good question. Where at? I assumed that, but it doesn't say that. Okay. Right here, where everything happens. So I encourage everyone to come and answer some questions and give your input as to what you would like our next superintendent to, the qualities that you would like our next superintendent to have. We're also going to be doing forums at every single campus for the staff that can really participate there as well. And there'll be additional opportunities for the public to weigh in after this as well. Okay. So will be on the website shortly. Yes. Yes. tomorrow. It will be on our website tomorrow. All of the listings of all the forums at every school, and then the community forum as well. Okay. And it'll be publicized other places, Facebook, and there'll be a flyer and the newspaper.
Yeah.
I hope. So any questions at all, of course, just check the website or call the district office or ask any of us, or we'll get you the information. Okay. All right. Next, current events, superintendent.
I'll jump on the Read Across America bandwagon down there, and I did Mountain View this year. I only got to one school. Sorry, Kathy, I should put it in those two. So, but Mountain View, and then we did Coyote's visit, which was great to get in the school and see everything happen and all the great things happening in our classrooms every day. And then along the lines of kind of things coming up, we have 2 principal positions open. We're going to be interviewing tomorrow, which is Wednesday, the 22nd, for our Lake Valley principal. And then next Wednesday, we're setting up interviews for the Badger Mountain Middle. And our principal interviews are taking place in the later afternoon, evening, so that staff and parents can attend and listen in on the interviews if they have any interest. So, we'll be at Lake Valley tomorrow and Bradshaw Middle next week. So, and that's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Appreciate that. Moving on. Celebrating successes. Tonight we are going to focus on Coyote Springs Elementary School, and we have the principal, Mrs. Michelle McCabe. Just your
Thank you.
presence is wonderful.
Thanks. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start with our classified staff, and unfortunately, she couldn't be here tonight, so that's why I'm going to start there. But President Adler, Superintendent Pottis, and members of the board. This is really loud, yes? I'm going to keep it out here. Right. It is an honor and privilege to be sharing with you Coyote Springs Elementary School's classified VIP, Miss Lee Woodruff. Miss Lee became a member of our Coyote Springs team in November of 2018 as an aide on our campus. It has been during this time that Lee has supported our students in our motor lab and additionally helps our online occupational therapist provide OT support to our students. Lee fulfills such an important role on our campus. As our motor lab aide, Lee stimulates students' sensory needs to help them improve their ability to maneuver and function in their environment. This leads to students having better performance in tasks such as handwriting, sitting still, paying attention, speaking, and behavior. Many of our students are coming to school lacking fine motor and gross motor skills due to many factors, as well as many different sensory needs. Through Ms. Lee's support, students are developing these fine and gross motor skills, which enables them to control themselves and accomplish tasks. Ms. Lee has created a weekly schedule where she provides services to over 100 of our students every week. Needless to say, she is very busy. While we are fortunate to have an occupational therapist at our school this year, unfortunately, she is online. This means someone has to not only supervise students while they meet with our occupational therapist, but prep and help test the students as well. Ms. Lee has taken this on a very difficult task, in addition to running the motor lab without complaint. Our school is so fortunate to have Ms. Lee. She continually works in the classroom with small groups in reading and math to make sure our students are growing, learning, and are safe. I can't thank Lee enough for everything that she does. Here are some things that our students had to say about Ms. Lee. Ms. Lee helps me relax and calm down in her classroom. Thank you, Ms. Lee, for helping all of us kids and doing fun things with us. Thank you for helping us and for always being kind. Ms. Lee, thank you for helping the kids in the school and always being happy. And lastly, there are many reasons why I love Miss Lee. My favorite thing is my relationship with her. She picks me up from class and brings me to hers. She makes me feel important because she does that. Her class is the highlight of my week. So thank you for Miss Lee. And unfortunately, like I said, she wasn't able to be here, but Miss Lee. And next, our volunteer VIP, Miss Sabrina, come on up. Gonna stand next to me. You can't do that. All right. It is an honor and privilege to be sharing with you Coyote Springs volunteer VIP, Miss Sabrina Sutter. In 2009, Sabrina's oldest son was a first grader at Coyote Springs, and this was when she first joined the Coyote Springs PTO board. Over the past 13 years, Coyote Springs has had the privilege of educating and growing with her three sons, Deegan, Trayson, and Preston, with Preston promoting to middle school last year. It has been during this time that Sabrina has faithfully served on our PTO board in various roles, the last 4 years as our treasurer. We all knew our time with Sabrina on our board was coming to a close, but as luck would have it, she still is here. Last school year, Sabrina opened up her home to 3 amazing kids and her family and is now helping raise them. So this has allowed Sabrina to continue serving on our board. Sabrina's heart and love for our kids shines through not only what she says, but with her actions as well. I have come to know Sabrina very well since I began working at Coyote Springs 8 years ago with her middle son, Trayson, when he was in my 6th grade math class. Sabrina was and is a fixture in our school. Throughout the years with her and her various roles on our campus, Sabrina has helped teachers in their classroom, worked with students, made copies, provided advice to our new PTO board, and planned and ran after-school PTO events such as our holiday shop, our harvest festival, fundraiser nights, restaurant nights, teacher appreciation luncheons, dinner nights for parent-teacher conferences, book fairs, and the end of the year field day, just to name a few. I know there's a lot more. She has given to our teachers and students countless hours, and we can't begin to thank her enough. It is very difficult for me to describe how much Sabrina has given back to our school and community. There are many things that Sabrina does that no one knows about. I would like to publicly recognize and thank Sabrina for going above and beyond for our teachers, our students, and our staff. Here are a few things that the board members had to say. Sabrina has been invaluable to our board for so many years. She is the one that we look to keep us on track. She has volunteered for events and helps us getting things organized. Sabrina continues to serve even with her own children out of the school. She is a blessing and a true asset to our school community. That was from Ms. Damko. I appreciate Sabrina's willingness to support and assist the CSES PTO even after her children completed their CSES school years. Thank you, Sabrina, from Ms. Reese. And lastly, I can't think of someone more deserving of this recognition than Sabrina Sutter. Year over year, Sabrina gives so much to the students, staff, and parents of Coyote Springs. She brings knowledge, kindness, and laughter to everything she does. She is a true asset to the Coyote Springs family. I am thankful and honored to know her and to serve with her. And that was from Miss Jenna. So please welcome me or help me congratulate her as our VIP. And now, Mrs. Reese, Miss Reese, come on down. So it is my honor and privilege to be sharing with you Coyote Spring Elementary School's certified VIP, Miss Reese. Miss Reese currently serves as a 3rd grade general education teacher in our co-teach classroom. She began teaching at Coyote Springs Elementary School 7 years ago after teaching in the Phoenix area. Throughout this time, she has served on and led several committees, such as the Read Across America team, CSES leadership team, grading and assessment team, co-teach team, and 3rd grade team lead, just to name a few. It is in these various roles that Miss Reese has shown how quickly she can adapt and work flexibly with many different teacher personalities. Not too many people have the ability to work in so many different areas of a school like Miss Reese. It is not uncommon to walk into Miss Reese's classroom and see her working with small groups of students or with students one-on-one, dancing along to multiplication songs, challenging her students to think deeper by providing complex problems to work through, motivating her students to make good behavioral choices, working with students on social skills, de-escalating frustrated students, and inspiring her students to be lifelong learners. As our school district has focused on personalized learning, Ms. Reese has been a model teacher in this area for years. Ms. Reese knows how important it is for each student to be challenged at their level and to show growth throughout the school year. Ms. Reese uses formative assessments and quick knowledge checks throughout her lesson to inform her instruction in daily small groups. With the use of the proficiency skills that she helped develop, she is quickly able to identify students that need extra support or extension activities. She is then able to personalize her instruction to service the needs of all students. She has also embraced the idea of flexible seating and has spent a lot of her own money to create the ideal learning environment. She has designed her classroom to be a place of collaboration in which her students thrive. Ms. Reese is an educator that goes above and beyond her teacher duties every single day. Her students know it and appreciate it, and here are a few things your students had to say. Ms. Reese is fun and silly. She teaches me a lot about writing. Writing is hard, and she helped me write an essay. She makes me happy because she is happy and silly. She is an amazing teacher because she has a couch. I love her because she is fun and with math centers. She is helping me learn the area inside a square. She makes me feel good, and she does that because she is so nice. Miss Reese teaches us very good, and she keeps the class controlled. She is nice and fun because we do fun ways to do math. She helps us write essays easier. She makes me feel very happy because she's fun and nice, and she makes my day happy. And we actually have a student here from Miss Reese's room that would like to read her sentence or two. So this is Little Miss Damco.
Miss Reese is very nice because she is fun and gives prizes. She teaches us how to read and take notes to help us write an essay. She makes me feel happy because she is funny.
So please join me in congratulating Miss Reese as our VIP.
Thank you, Principal McCabe. On behalf of the governing board, I want to congratulate all of our VIPs for this month. Mrs. Woodruff, although you're not here, I was really impressed by reading the type of work that you're doing in the motor lab. You know, I know that that's got to be a very challenging place to work, and working with an OT remotely like you're doing is quite the feat. OT isn't normally done remotely. It's not meant to be done that way. So without Mrs. Woodruff's help, we would not be able to have that OT performing those services. You are basically serving as the OT's eyes and hands to deliver the critical services that they're delivering. And much appreciated. Thank you, Mrs. Woodruff. Mrs. Sutter, you obviously are what I like to call a servant leader, because serving is what you do. And through that service, you lead our campus. I know firsthand that PTO is a lot of work, and it usually falls to a few. And you doing that just so shows how selfless you are. And that service is really invaluable to a school community. It really, truly makes a huge difference. So never doubt that. And thank you for hanging in there so long and doing all that knowledge you must have about Coyote Springs. That's wonderful. And was it, and treasurer for 4 years? You can never find treasurers. That's like the worst job.
But
But thank you.
But thank you. But thank you. Yes. Thank you very much for everything you do. We really appreciate that. Miss Rees, so the first thing I noticed that was probably the most important thing is out of the four little blurbs that kids wrote about you, the word happy was mentioned 5 times. That says a lot right there. It really does. Campuses need leaders in addition to the principal. And obviously you are that. You've served on so many important committees, helped that school move forward in so many important ways. The fact that you embraced and really used personalized learning before we ever did shows, what a great educator you really are. And it's just good teaching, and you meet kids at their level, and you do what needs to be done so they can learn. And that's really what it's about. So thank you so much for everything you do for Coyote Springs, and I hope you keep doing it for a long time. That's good. Do we have contracts that say that? Forever? 2023 to forever. All right. Thank you. Thank you all. All right. Next is our public participation. I don't see any yellow cards. Okay. Just so the public knows, we do have public participation item at every regular board meeting. And we welcome the public to come up and speak. And all you need to do is fill out a yellow card when you come in, and then it gets to me, and then we recognize you to speak. Moving on to our number 6 consent items. Board members, anything you'd like to discuss separately from the consent agenda? Hearing none, we do have some gifts and donations. Ms. Maison or Mrs. Wolcott? Who? There you go. You do it in unison.
I can do it. Alrighty, gifts and donations. Bradshaw Mountain High School, Sons of the American Revolution, gave a $100 donation to Bradshaw Mountain High School JROTC. Edward Jones Trust Company FBO John Hughes, a $293 donation to Bradshaw Mountain High School Mountain Bike Club. Eric Johnson, portable studio including electronic flashes, light stands, umbrellas, reflectors, soft boxes, a large backdrop, and other studio gear with an approximate value of $1,000. Glassford Hill Middle School, Susan Jones, a $50 donation for Glassford Hill Middle School drama and music program. Granville Elementary, American Online Giving Foundation, gave an anonymous donation of $930 to Granville Elementary School. And Dave and Fran Steele, 10 $25 Walmart gift cards to the district office.
Thank you, Ms. Mazzone, and thank you to all of those generous donors. We truly appreciate it, and it helps our district out a lot to have that kind of support. With that, we need a motion for those consent items.
Move we can accept the consent items as presented.
I second.
Motion by Mrs. Roth, second by Mrs. Mazzone. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. On to number 7, discussion items. 7A, Coyote Springs Elementary School update. Once again, Principal McCabe.
I didn't get an applause that time. There we go. Woo-hoo. Thank you. I can sit down now. President Adler, Superintendent Pottas, members of the board, I am so happy to be here to be able to present about Coyote Springs Elementary School. First, we're going to start off with some celebrations and successes. This year, we are part of a letters training. And if you don't know what letters training is a 2-year commitment that some of our teachers have made. We have 13 teachers, myself, Mrs. Clark, are all participating in this. And it is all about reading and learning about reading and how to teach reading. And it is amazing. It is a fantastic program that we're going through right now. At the end of that, some of our teachers are going to be able to use what they've learned in order to get their reading endorsement. So it is a great opportunity that we're able to participate in. We have 3 of our teachers that have been accepted into the ASU STEM Fellowship. Part of that fellowship, they were given $2,000 to buy things for STEM purposes in their classroom, and they're also getting 30 hours of professional development through that program. So it has been amazing. We have 2 6th grade teachers and a 4th grade teacher, correct? No. We have 2 national board recertified teachers. That just happened this past September or October, or was it more recent than that? But Miss Clark, right here, our instructional specialist, she is one of our nationally board certified teachers, and then also Miss Skur in our 3rd grade. Our CSES kitchen staff received the Golden Plate Award. We have 12 before and after school programs, such as choir and bike safety, a couple different art classes, yearbook. We have our news network. We have some tutoring, student council, and other things going on. So a lot of things for our kiddos to do before and after school. And this year, being able to do the Veterans Day breakfast again on our campus was amazing. We had some people from the over here at the district office come over. We had a lot of parents. Our cafeteria was completely filled with people having breakfast. And part of what we do at Coyote Springs is we like to do a parade. And I always tell everybody, let's stay for the parade. And so they stay, but they don't know that they are the parade. So once they're there, we have all of the kids line up in the hall, and then we parade them around the school, and everybody cheers for them and claps. And it's a really fun thing that we get to do for our veterans. We had 38 5th and 6th grade students participate in basketball this year. We had so many that we had to end up with 3 coaches. And it was just great that we had teachers that were wanting to do that and willing to coach basketball and be able to provide that for our students. We had 24 5th and 6th grade students participate in volleyball. That filled up in one day. So we had to turn everybody else down that wanted to play. But we had 24 students for that. We are continuing our partnership with our community, such as with Sprouts. We had a kindergarten field trip to Sprouts, which was so much fun. The kids loved that, and they did everything for free, and kids came home with fruit and a lot of cool things that they learned over there at Sprouts. Matt Forrest, Fire Pals are still coming. We have a partnership with the Highland Center with our habitat. And Embry Riddle came out for our Read Across America night. And we are partnered with ASU for our math, with a math program. And our 5th and 6th graders are able to participate in that. And we have one more year with ASU for that. We have a partnership with NAU where we have students, NAU students coming to do their practicum hours, and we have 2 student teachers from NAU right now as well. We have had a lot of family event nights, finally, being able to get people back in our school and do things with our families. Our Harvest Festival was a great success. Camp Read a Lot, which we just did for Read Across America, we ended up with about 100 families coming out, 100 different students coming out for that. We've had book fairs, sports, winter concerts. So again, it's just really nice to get people back out and being able to hang out with the families. And then lastly, we have, with that ASU partnership, we have 11 of our 6th grade students and 15 of our 5th grade students have accelerated past their grade level and are now working on advanced grade level math. So it's nice that we have that program where we're able to provide that for our students. Moving on, I would like to talk about some data. We all love data, right? So I have our state testing report, some stuff that I'm going to share with you for Galileo, and then what our focus is here for our school. So to kind of walk you through here, you can see the cut scores off to the side for the school letter grades. And proficiency, 30% of our score is based on proficiency. Our school receives about 16 and a half points in that area. For growth, that is 50% of our score, and we received a little over 41 points. So that was our big area that we did really well in at our school, was the growth last year. Oh, and then in growth, you can see here, it's broken down by ELA and math. So for ELA, we had just a little over 22 and a half points, but for math, almost 19 points. So with that, we've kind of we use this data to focus that we need to focus a little bit more in the area of math. And that's what I'm going to share with you on what we're doing this year in math. But still both really good. 25 points would be the max for each of those categories. And with ELA getting pretty close to getting all 25 of those points for our growth. In EL, proficiency and growth, we don't have enough EL students at our school in order to receive any points there. So that is why that is blank. However, I think this school year we might be able to meet their threshold. Acceleration and readiness, we did receive all 10 points. Those were the areas where we received those points. We can only max out at 10. We got 13 points, but they only give us 10 of them. So all in all, that came out to a total of 75% of the points that we were able to receive, we received. And then we were able to also get 3.5 bonus points, 2 in special education and 1.5 in our science assessment from our 5th grade. So that came out to a total of 79.1 points, which gives us a solid B. That's we're right in the middle. So definitely some areas of growth here, looking at our proficiency. In our growth area, we're doing really well, but that's the proficiency is what we're really focusing on, is trying to make sure that our students are proficient. So moving on to Galileo. I don't know how familiar you are with a box and whisker plot. It's kind of a weird graph, but let me just explain it really quick in case you don't understand or you don't know what it is. But this is basically, it's showing you, it's breaking everything down into quartiles, so 25%. So this piece right here is 25%, this is 25%, 25%, and 25%. So it just kind of helps us see where all of our data is clustering. This is our Galileo report from our beginning of the year this year toward the middle of the year. And this is just for ELA. And it's broken down by grade levels down here at the bottom. So 1st grade through 6th grade. Okay. The growth scores over here on the side, this represents the DL score. That's just a kind of this random number that you get. I don't know how they calculate it, but Galileo will calculate that score. And then they compare the pre-test to the next test. And that's where they get the growth. You just subtract them to find the growth. So Galileo will give us an average on what they expect students to grow. And so if you look at my graph here, it is all of these red lines. Those were the expectations. The blue line is our actual average growth. 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. Okay. So what we can pull from this is all of our grades maintained or they exceeded the expected amount of growth. 1st grade and 5th grade both exceeded. 1st grade exceeded by a lot. The median growth exceeded the expected amount of growth in 1st, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade as well. So our goal for the end of the year test is I would like to see the 3rd quartile, the bottom of this 3rd quartile, exceeding the expected growth. So I want to see all of that kind of moved up. So at the end of the school year, when they take their Galileo test, that's what we'll be doing and what we'll be looking at as the student growth. So that's our graph for ELA. And this is what it looks like for math. So it's the same kind of thing. All of our grades maintained or exceeded in math. 2nd grade and 5th grade exceeded. And the median growth exceeded the expected growth in 1st grade, 2nd grade, and 5th grade. So we're well on our way of showing a lot of growth as well this year. So like I said before, we are focusing on growing our math. That's where we were struggling a little bit based on our state testing. So we have a focus on math fluency this school year. So I just want to kind of go over a little bit, why is math fluency so important? Well, first of all, non-fluent students are consciously using the front part of their brain, which is taking up all of their working memory just to focus on trying to calculate a number. Okay. Fluent students are using the back part of their brain where they're just retrieving that number, and they're able to use the front part of their brain in order to do all of the other stuff that we're asking them to do in math. So fluency in math is really, really important. And we want to make sure that we're leaving the front part of their brain, the working part of their brain, the working memory, using that part on the right thing. And the right thing is not doing your basic math calculations. So that's really the reason that we're focusing in that area. And there's a couple things that we're doing in order to build that fluency first. We're focusing on accuracy and efficiency. And that's usually what a lot of people think about when you think about math fact fluency, is being accurate and being efficient, being quick. But there's another piece to that, which is being flexible, and that's knowing the strategies. And we're focusing a lot on having the teachers teaching strategies to students, not the strategy of taking 4 times 8 and drawing 4 groups of 8 and counting all of those dots. That's not a quick, efficient strategy. So we're focusing on strategies. Next, our students need enjoyable practice. They need a lot of practice. And so we're focusing on different games that they can play in the classroom, things that they can do for homework, just trying to make this a fun experience for our students. Another thing that we're learning as we're kind of going through all of this is we've learned about foundational facts and derived facts. And I don't know how you learned multiplication facts. We'll just go with that one because that's usually what everyone thinks of. But I know a lot of people start at 0. They go to 1, they go to 2, they go to 3, and they kind of move through until you get to 9. Maybe you get to 9 or 10 by the end of the school year. But we've learned that there's other ways that we need to be working this through. So our teachers are focusing on that and using the facts that they do know, using your 2s, your 5s, your 10s to figure out what those other math facts are. Again, other than having to draw out a bunch of dots. Our teachers have learned how to do math running records in the classroom. We've been doing running records in reading for a very long time. And so we're also using that in math as well. And again, that's helping our teachers focus on strategies. And when it comes to personalized learning, we have a spreadsheet that the teachers can put everything into, and it will sort everybody and kind of put them into groups as well, so they're able to focus on certain strategies that they're working on in the classroom. And lastly, we have a school-wide math assessment that we're using to track the progress of students, and that's what I would like to share with you now. So for kindergarten, we are focusing on number recognition and subitizing. Subitizing is where you see a number of dots and you're just able to quickly say how many dots are on the page, and that's really a foundation into moving into addition and subtraction. The red bar here is where the kids started at the beginning of the year, and the yellow bar is where our kindergartners were at the middle of the year. This dark line is where we would like them to be at the end of the year. So kindergarten's well on our way to getting to where we want to be. In first grade, we are focusing on addition and subtraction to 10. And you can see our growth in first grade. It's huge. We're almost to our goal already. And then in second grade, they're focusing on addition and subtraction to 20. And then lastly, our third, fourth, fifth, and sixth grade, we're working on all of the operations in the basic math facts. And we are tracking this every single quarter as opposed to our kinder first and second, where we're only doing it 3 times a year. For the other grade levels, we're doing this 5 times a year. And you can see our growth in that area as well. One thing that I would like to point out is our 5th and 6th grade, these last 2 bar graphs on the side, they are doing our partnership with ASU, in which we have a program where they are able to do math facts, and you can see a lot of growth happening over here in 5th and 6th grade. All right, so our next steps for math fluency. Right now, this year, we're only focusing on basic math facts, but there's actually 2 more components that go into this. We have computational fluency, which we're going to focus in on next year, which is more of those bigger numbers. What do we do when we have multi-digit numbers? And then we are also going to focus on what does homework look like and what is the classwork practice going to look like. So those are our next steps for next year. All right, some of you were able to come out to Coyote Springs before spring break, and some of you were not able to, but I have a video for you. Now, all of you get to see what we do on a daily basis at Coyote Springs. So I'd like to thank Miss Clark, Mrs. Houston, and Miss Macy, who were able to do all the voice for that for me. They are members of my PL leadership team. They come here when we have our trainings. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Principal McCabe, for that wonderful presentation. Board members, questions or comments? Yeah, Ms. Roth.
Hi,
Hi.
how are you?
Fantastic.
You are. So I have a couple of questions and some comments, of course. So first of all, I would like to comment on your after-school activities and just say kudos to you. I think first of all, bike safety, awesome. But what is News Network? What do they do then in the news?
So that's our Coyote Springs News Network, and they create news for our students. It's our morning announcements.
That's what I
They do this they have 4 different times a week. We just don't do it on
Awesome.
Wednesdays.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I have a suggestion for another after school, maybe bike safety, maybe news safety too. You know, just something like that. Just throwing that out there. But I think that it's awesome that you added the math, like you explained what the brain does with the math. I want to thank you for that, because that really enables those of us who are not math people to better understand, even if we're educators, that we might not be math people, right?
Right.
So I love that you delved into that in a way that was really easy for everybody to understand. So I appreciate that. And I love the concept of making math fun. You mentioned that several times,
Mhm.
and I absolutely love that, because that to introduce that in first grade, kindergarten, first grade, and all those are foundational skills. And when you introduce it at that age as something that is fun, it can change the concept and the trajectory of that person's life. Really, it can.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you guys doing that. But you mentioned running records.
Mhm.
Can you explain that?
Sure.
What those are?
So our math running records, it's I got it from somebody else that had already created it, but there's essentially 12 questions for each operation, and it walks the kids through, like gives them a question, and you're able to track then. You ask them the question and ask them what strategy that they use to solve that question.
Okay.
Then based on those answers, the students are able, or the teachers are able to log that into the spreadsheet, and then it helps them identify what students need to work on what strategies.
Ah, okay. All right. That makes sense. Okay. Great presentation. I really appreciate all the data and how you presented it in a way that was really digestible for us. For me, I'll just speak for myself. And you guys are doing awesome. And I just want to say Coyote Springs will always we moved here on literally, we arrived on a Sunday morning in Prescott Valley 1 week before school started. And my son started kindergarten the following Monday, and my daughters continued in third grade. And it was Coyote Springs, and they were there for several years. So that's like my little heart. So good job. Excellent job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Roth. Other comments or questions, board members? Anyone? If Mrs. McCabe, I got a couple of questions for you and a couple of comments. As far as the letters reading training, you talked about teachers receiving an endorsement at the end of that, right?
Yes.
How did your school go about getting that program?
So this, I believe, was offered through the state. Is this correct, Dr. Griffin? And it was sent out to everybody in the district, and we had just all of our teachers like, I'm doing it. So we ended up with 13 people who kind of stuck it out. We started off with a little bit more, but then once we figured out how much there really was into it, I think by the end of this year, and this is going to be on the low side, it's going to be about 60 hours of work that we've put into it. So it's a lot of work. But yeah, we have 13 people still sticking it in and going through it.
And it sounds like they feel it's valuable.
It's amazing. My kindergarten and first grade teams are like, we need to sit down and talk about this. We need to come up with a plan. So they're very excited, and
Okay.
it is pretty amazing.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
great. That's really great that they stepped up and put in, I know, all those extra hours to put in.
Yeah.
to do
And I'm
something.
learning so much. I've been a math teacher my entire career. So being able to get in there and really understand reading has been amazing for me too.
Well, that's great. That's great. Well, I can definitely attest to what Mrs. Roth said about being not being a math person, and making math fun. It's a really foreign concept to me, but I I know that my life would have been very different
Yeah.
if I felt that way
Yeah.
early on, because
Right.
yeah, it was like the opposite of fun for
Yeah.
me. So It was
For me, math became not fun in middle school when we were doing timed math facts, and I was the slowest one in my class. So I understand why sometimes kids feel like they're not smart or they don't understand math when they might be the slowest student in the classroom doing math facts, and that's not really the point of it. So really just freeing up that space to be able to think and not have to sit there and try to calculate things in your head it's really important.
right. Yeah. Wow, that's fascinating, really. Um, the other thing I wanted to ask you about was, well, I wanted to ask you about one thing and then make a comment. On the accelerated ASU, so you said that you have 11 fifth graders and 15 sixth graders that are, what does that mean to the students? What does that mean to them?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of the times when we're teaching students, we teach to the middle, right? You want to teach the students and kind of just get those standards out there, make sure that they understand the standards. And the students who are like, yeah, I got this, they're just kind of sitting there twiddling their thumbs. So for these students, being able to go above and beyond, and I have sixth graders that are doing seventh grade math, doing eighth grade math at their own pace. It's just fantastic for them. And just really having that opportunity to push themselves is great. And the program is also helping some of our students who are behind in math go back and fill in some of those gaps. So it's not just about that grade level content. So we're filling in a lot of holes. Our fifth grade teacher, one of the things that she was doing when she did the pre-test, we noticed that a lot of our students had gaps back in first grade, second grade, and third grade. And when she went back and gave that assessment again in the middle of the year, the lowest that any of her kids scored was in the fourth grade where they had gaps. So that we use that program to fill in all of those gaps in those primary grades, which is huge. So you might not see that in the data when they take Galileo, right? But we're filling in all of those gaps from those previous years, which is really important.
I'm sure the parents really appreciate that, opportunity for both groups of kids,
Yeah.
that need to have gaps filled in, but also kids that need a little more of a challenge.
Yep.
And that's always been, in HUSD, that's been a challenge for us to offer that.
Right. Well, and having a program that helps us do that is
Yeah.
really important, because it's for a teacher who has 100 students, there's no way you're going to know every single gap that all those 100 students have. So this
Right.
program is helping us do that.
That's great. That's great. And I just want to commend you because it's obvious the main thing that you're doing really, really, really well is growth. And that's what it's all about, really, right? It's taking kids where they're at and helping them grow. So that's the key statistic in all of those numbers. So congratulations on that. Thank you. Yeah. All right, that was wonderful. Thank you. Moving on to discussion item 7B, HUSD IT accomplishments and updates. Mr. Mark Moe. Hello, Mark.
Testing. All right.
Yeah.
Good to see you again.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, board members, fellow community members. So you all have put a lot of trust in the technology department over the past year, and we've covered a lot of ground. So I'd like to take a few minutes to provide everyone an update on what we've accomplished and also what's still in our vision and what's left there to do. Okay. Like I said, we covered a lot of ground. To help make this more digestible, I broke it into 4 categories. First category is technology debt. Second category is operational readiness. Third category is cybersecurity. And last category is empowerment. For the technology debt, I'm going to deep dive a little more on the next slide. But really, our focus has been risk reduction. For example, our cybersecurity insurance is through the trust, and they have specific requirements that we have to meet in order for us to be insured. And to accomplish that, we have instituted immutable and offsite backups. Additionally, a lot of our operating systems, so operating systems are like the Windows or the Apple iOS. Those are the underlying software that runs on your devices. Many of those were decades old. It was not good, but now we're sitting very good now. After a recent vulnerability scan, we passed with flying colors. We do have some legacy systems we need to address, but overall, we're in a much better state than we were about a year ago. Lastly, on the risk reduction, we rebuilt a lot of institutional knowledge that's been either not documented or just kind of went out the door, people forget. That was really important because in order for us to make progress, we have to really document where we've been and continue to document those changes in order for us to know where we're going. So the other areas I'll cover on the next slide, operational readiness. This is something that we really accelerate on, whether we like it or not. We've had some challenges with the devices that were deployed. So the department really accelerated the effort. For example, for the high school, Mr. Dahl is definitely seen the benefits of that, but we replaced all of our Wi-Fi wireless access points. So basically, when you log into a device and you try to log into a Wi-Fi, times that by a couple hundred students, and you can see that there's going to be some contingents going on. Well, our Wi-Fi access was not at the latest generation that can really absorb all those connections at once. So what we did is we really accelerate our deployment effort to making sure that we're ready as we continue to have this explosion of devices that the board and the community invested in with the one-to-one student devices over the past year. Other areas I want to highlight, compliance as part of the trust requirement. We've done vulnerability scan, and some of you may be the recipient of these phishing simulation programs. It's questionable how effective they are, but at least it gives us a data point as to how we're doing, if we're effective in catching that. Because while we have a lot of safeguards in place with our email systems, firewalls, and so forth, we can't catch everything. So the technology department needs everyone's help to be vigilant in assessing these communications that are coming into our email system and saying, you know what, is this legit? Would Mark really say that? Would Mr. Pottas really say that? We need to continue to stay vigilant because technology can only take us so far. And last but not least, I want to talk about empowerment. We've come a long ways in terms of where the technology team was and where we are now. Less than a year ago, about a year ago, I can see my team members basically touching each other when they're working. Now we have enough space. As one of my team members mentioned, the nerds took over the gym. And that's a good thing because now we have room to breathe. We have room to really scale up and burst. So for example, when we were working on deploying about 2,000 devices in less than 90 days, boxes were everywhere. For those of you that were here over the summer, we didn't know what to do with all the boxes. And because we had more area to work with, we were able to adapt and we were able to use assembly line process to where we were able to streamline the deployment in a consistent way and predictable way. One other item that's not on here that I want to quickly discuss for empowerment, and it's just not for the staff, the teachers, and for us here that's working at the district, but one of the things that I feel like was a crown achievement for the technology department and for us all is the fact that we negotiated a contract with the threat management provider. And as part of that negotiation I shared with you last year, we were able to secure almost $1 million worth of licensing for not just us here, but for the entire community, for the students, for the parents, to make sure that their devices are secured or at least protected in some way from identity theft, from bad actors. I obviously cannot tell you how effective that is because as much as the government may make you want to believe that we can see everything, we can't. So we can only rely on the fact that for those members that you've installed on your devices, that you're more well protected, or perhaps it really saved an unfortunate event from happening. Okay, so on the technology debt, one of the big investments we made last year was modernizing our data center. and not just modernizing, but moving our data center. Our data center was at a location that we had to sell, and now our data center is at the high school. So as part of that move, we took advantage of that situation, and we also said, you know what? A lot of these equipment is so old, it's not even supported. When they break, we'll just have to buy it and rebuild it. And that's not really a agile method to keep our business running. And by business, I mean our students, their learning. So what we did is we completed that project on time and on budget. We evacuated all of our equipment from the old district office and reinstituted it in the new data center at Bradshaw Mountain High School. There is sufficient cooling now. There's sufficient airflow to make sure that the systems that we deployed are going to remain here safe for years to come. Another thing we did is we transcend the systems architecture from a traditional standalone to hyper-converged infrastructure. And I know what some of you are thinking, hyper-converged infrastructure. This is like out of a sci-fi movie. What are you talking about, Mark? So I made a little diagram to help explain this. So envision each server like a fish in a fishbowl. So when your fish dies, what do? You buy new fish. But what if the fish tank blows up? Well, you got a problem because you have to do something with that fish. Now we have about 30 of these old fish tanks with old application, goldfish, whatever, what have you, sitting in here. And every time a fish dies or a fish bowl blows up, I have to come to you reactively, ask for more funding. That's not really the way we want to operate, especially when we're talking about critical systems like payroll, HR. We can't afford to have those systems go down. So what we did is we moved to a hyper-converged infrastructure. So instead of having all these little expensive fish tanks, we bought 4 bigger fish tanks. We filled it up so that way in the event that a fish or an application needs to be moved, they get too big, they get sick, what have you, we can move them around seamlessly. And it's much more manageable. Instead of managing 30-some fish tanks, we're managing 4 fish tanks. Hopefully that analogy makes sense to some of you. I have 2 fish tanks at home. I have to take care of it, so I'm doing a little hyper-converging myself at home right now. On the technology debt, on the immutable and offsite backup, now we maintain our eligibility with cybersecurity insurance. I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but that is a very important topic right now for us, because for those of you that's kept up with local news or even national news, there are some really big bad actors going after school districts right now. They know we're underfunded. They know we're understaffed. Tucson Unified School District got hit pretty hard. There are other unconfirmed school districts that's been hit that I can't really speak about. LA School District got hit earlier this year. So we have to remain very vigilant and making sure that we make decisions that are not only good for the district, but making sure that those decisions are also security centric, that we're making the right investments and we're thinking about how to prevent the bad actors from going after our school district. Another area I want to talk about is TCO reduction. So for those not big into acronyms, TCO is total cost of ownership. That is a major concern, especially if you don't have an ongoing fund to maintain a specific technology or tool. So what we did is we looked at GoGuardian. GoGuardian came to us on last year's contract renewal and said, hey, we're not providing you with any more features, but you'll owe us 28% more just to maintain the same license. So what I did is I challenged the team to look at other viable options, compare the cost benefits of looking at the others, and we determined Block C can save us 63% for the next 3-year renewal. We've already done a pilot program with some of the schools and have gotten really good results. So if we move forward with that, we're going to save over $150,000 over the next 3 years, just going through those exercises. And those are the types of value add that we'll continue to provide to the school district. Microsoft licensing, that was also another one where we had to evaluate on the fly. vendor forgot to provide us with a renewal notice. So when it landed on my desk, I'm like, okay, who else wants to make a bid on this? And we found another vendor that was able to provide an aggressive pricing, and it saved us for almost $49,000 last year. Okay, so you're like, Mark, you told me where we've gone, so where are we going now? So I call this Vision 2023 and beyond. Tech initiatives that are currently in flight. CCTV tech refresh, Project Verkada, because the camera system's Verkada system. Intercom Bell paging pilot program, we're also spinning that up. AV enhancement for this professional development center, Project Vista. Web revitalization, Project Shay. So yes, I'm calling it Project Shay. The new website's going to look awesome. Sparklight circuit expansion. We hit a bottleneck with Sparklight earlier this year. We recognize that we desperately need to expand our circuit in order to keep up with the demand and traffic that we're generating. Wi-Fi access point we covered before. Multi-factor authentication is another one where it's going to be coming up later this year with the cybersecurity insurance, where they're going to require us to not just use our passwords, but we're going to have to have the second level of authentication. And that's something that we've already deployed to the front office, and we'll shortly deploy it across the district. So that way, we'll be able to get insurance, and we will sleep better at night knowing that somebody can't just log into Dr. Griffin's computer without her authorization. Other areas we are going to continue to work on is on the right side. Continuous service improvement. My philosophy is when you get something, when you institute something, don't be satisfied with it. Continue to look for ways to improve it because there's always room for improvement. Last but not least, transformative opportunities. These are things that you have not signed off yet, but that's something that we will be having conversations around depending on what our needs are. So transition from key to batch access to secured areas, VoIP phones, so that's voice over IP. Right now we're running on a legacy phone system, so when a certain circuit goes out or if a building power goes out, nobody can call in or out. That's not a good event to have to manage. On-demand centralization application access, digital transformation, and also a redundant ISP circuit implementation. Unfortunately, we experienced an internet circuit disruption this morning that kind of leads to why we have this on this bulletin, is the fact that we'll continue to have these disruptions unless we eliminate the single point of failure. Health and safety. So these are two things that we're working on. Verkada cameras, they're future-proof. So this investment, we don't have to worry about support and warranty for the next 10 years, and it's unlimited cloud storage. So we don't have to worry about the ongoing cost of having to save these recordings. And with Verkada, it takes a lot of guesswork out of our resource officers and even for administrators. No longer are we having to go through hours of recording, looking for a hoodie, someone wearing a hoodie around the campus. We can actually use some intelligence behind it where we type in guy with glasses and red hoodie, where is he? And they'll automatically look through all the recordings. They'll populate the recordings that matches that description. So save our resource officer time, it'll save our administrator time, and frankly, it's going to make our campus a lot more secure. Some other items I want to highlight, well, again, multi-factor authentication, asset management, patch management. These are really expensive products that we're delivering to the district no cost right now. And on the next slide, I'll tell you how we're accomplishing that. And then, again, what I spoke about with empowering the community is we're providing almost $1 million over the next 3 years for everyone to be able to install these in end device threat management piece on your device. Okay, so one thing that I want to share with you all a few months ago, but did not have an opportunity to, is the fact that our school district is a recipient of a grant program by the state's Department of Homeland Security. So what they've done is they have set aside several $1,000,000 for underserved rural communities to also have a fighting chance at these state actors, these organized crime organizations, where we're no longer bringing a butter knife to a gunfight. We actually have tools. We actually have the same tools where the federal government and the militaries have to combat and defend themselves. And what we were able to pull up is the street value of what someone in a private organization would have to pay. And calculating that, what we're deploying right now, we saved ourselves about 800 to 900,000 a year. So if we were going to go out there and get these tools ourselves, that's how much it would have cost the district. But we're getting that no cost right now through this grant program. And last but not least, as I said earlier, there's not a whole lot of representation for underserved and rural communities, but now we have a seat at the table. So there is an advisory board with the cybersecurity program, and we'll determine what platforms make sense, what doesn't make sense, where we should go. And a lot of the larger districts have a seat at the table, but now our school district also has a seat. So we can make recommendations on maybe what something would make sense for a bigger school district may not make sense for a smaller school district. Now we have a voice. And that's the end of my presentation. I know I promised Mr. Potts it'll be only a few minutes, but I think I took up at least half an hour, so I apologize. Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
any questions, comments?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Moe. That was really, really informative. Board members, questions, comments? Mr. Ruhl.
Yeah, could you explain what you just said?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to think about that. I used up all my analogies.
I'm just kidding. The improvements you've made since you've been here have been amazing, and we're so lucky to have you here, and just appreciate everything you've done for improving our schools and the experience for our teachers and students. So, thank you.
Well, I appreciate the trust that the board and the community members have put in the department. I couldn't do it without a tremendous support from you guys and from my team. They deserve all the credit. I'm just getting on the phone and kind of point at people.
I'd like to say I appreciate that you were opportunistic when somebody didn't do what they were supposed to do in getting you that renewal, and you took that opportunity to save us money. So it sounds like you do everything cost efficiently. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. That having worked in a lot of Fortune 50 companies, I think the mindset has always been, well, it's okay to spend that kind of money because we're making money, and that mindset doesn't work here. Yeah.
There
So
you go. Now that
like
was
you
well
said.
said.
Yeah. And even if we can't save money, we're going to look for value add propositions. So if they can't give us a bigger discount, we're going to look for, well, what can you do for my community? Can you give us more licensing? Can you give us added features that not only benefit our immediate audience, but the audience of the community as a whole?
Thank you.
Yeah, Mrs. Rowe?
I will echo everything. Thank you. Thank you. I have a couple of comments and questions. So you just talked about the grant program that we are a part of. Is that a grant that you went out for and got, or was that in place? I don't know.
That was mentioned in passing at one of the ASPO meetings. So I went and looked into more details about this grant program, who's eligible, what are they offering, and looking at how cyber security centric they were, and how we need to fill some gaps. They really did present a proposal that would allow us to fill those gaps at no cost. And again, would provide us with a seat at the table for the entire state.
So that's awesome, and thank you for sure. I'm just wondering how long that grant will be for, and the things that you're putting in place when that grant ends, are they still going to be sustainable?
I couldn't say any better because that was my concern is how is this funded and is this funded and reviewed on a yearly basis
Right.
or depending on which administration's running it, how that would impact. Right now, that is a topic of concern for the Cybersecurity Grant Board is the fact that now we have a new administration. How would that continue to be funded? And from what I have heard, and this is not official yet, but they're looking for testimonials, especially from K-12, especially in light of a lot of these cybersecurity events, ransomware attacks on school
Right,
districts.
right.
How is that benefiting us? And I've been asked to write a testimonial for the governor to consider. Um, the fact that we are not funded like some of the larger districts in Phoenix.
Right.
I think it has had a tremendous impact on our ability to defend ourselves. And I will continue to advocate for that program if they need me to advocate for it. But as of right now, I believe instead of a perpetual funding for this program, it's going to be evaluated at the end of 2023.
Okay.
And I don't foresee that grant program being dissolved or reduced because of the constant threat that we're under. My personal opinion, if I were a governor, I would not want to be sitting at the table when that fund is dissolved and then a cybersecurity event happened.
Right.
That's just it wouldn't be a position that I would put myself under.
Right, for sure. Thank you for bringing that information about that, because grants are always great, but then when they're, they're great to have, but then when they're gone, it's like, okay, now what? You still want a program that is really successful or important, very important like this. You want to be able to sustain it. So I appreciate that. And the fact that you got, I don't remember what it was, but you got it for 10 years support warranty and unlimited cloud storage is really crazy and awesome. So thank you for that. And I love how you talked about the phones and you said it was our current legacy phone system. So that's IT's way of saying our very old phone system. So our legacy phone system. I like that. So again, thanks for all your hard work. We are so, like Paul said, we're just so grateful to have you here, and all the things that you've done since you've been here is just, I mean, I don't know if you know his background, but it's like crazy. Like, you should, someday he'll tell you.
I've seen a lot of your emails, so I know that you're definitely a competent individual, but I don't know.
It's insane. Like, the fact that he's here, we're so lucky. So thank you very much for all that you do for our district.
Yeah, and thank
Yeah.
you for your support. There's no
Yeah.
way that we could have accomplished this without your trust and your faith in my department, frankly, because we've gone through a lot, and to be able to get to where we are today, I think everyone in the community should be proud.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Mr. Moe, I agree with you. I think we should be proud, and you're a big part of why. But I want to just say that you are someone that inspires trust. It's very easy to trust you. You are competent. You spend the time to do research, to develop these programs and find savings and efficiencies. It's clear, and you're interested in. You see, when you mention now, that doesn't work here about just spending money and not really worrying too much about how much it costs, and you understand the situation that school districts find themselves in, especially rural school districts. And it's something that we have been so frustrated with for many, many years in this district. Just incredibly frustrated. So the fact that you are a problem solver really is incredibly valuable to us, backed by your wealth of knowledge, obviously. So, again, I agree with everyone else. Thank you so much for everything you've done. I think I can speak for the board. We're happy to support you, and don't hesitate to ask if you need something.
Will do. And don't hesitate to reach out as well. And even after this meeting, I know I threw a lot at everyone, a lot of technical jargon. So if I can help at all to provide more insight, please let me know.
Let me ask you one quick last question.
Sure.
On that grant, on the grant that we were just talking about, and you said that they're looking for testimonials. If we can be of any help in that, writing a letter to the governor, I'd be happy to do so if that would help. I would not use any jargon at all, though, in it.
Or even
Absolutely.
having you write it and we endorse what you're writing.
There you
Maybe
go.
that would be better.
Yeah, I'll definitely take you guys up on that because
Okay,
right
yeah.
now, I'm not into politics, and certainly to have somebody hit the governor's desk, I would appreciate everyone's thoughts and feedback on that area.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. Next, item 7C is our personalized learning update, and that's Mrs. Misty Wilson. Welcome back.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you for having me and allowing me to update the board on the impact of personalized learning in Humboldt Unified School District. So, we've been talking about personalized learning for a while now in Humboldt, and I think it's important to reiterate that personalized learning is not just a new program. It's not a way to differentiate instruction. It's not a new resource. It's not a new digital tool. It's a completely different way of thinking about the way that we teach kids. It's a different way of thinking about the way that we learn, both our children, our students, as well as the adults in our community, which includes our teachers. So redesigning the way that we think about teaching and learning is what we're really after. So here in HUSD, we focus our efforts in personalized learning around the key three. And the key three are intentional instruction. You heard a little bit from Coyote about these different areas. Learner-driven, evidence-informed, and then also student agency. So when we think about what's really important in a classroom, we think about what is the right work, what is going to make the biggest impact on student growth and achievement. And so when you think about ways that you can unlock student potential, we look at John Hattie's research. So he was is a world-renowned educator and researcher, and he's done a lot of work around what makes big impacts in the classroom. What impacts kids? What impacts their learning? What impacts their achievement and their growth? And when you look at his research, he put it on a scale. So there's a scale up there that you can see. And if you look at the hinge point, which is 0.4, that information gives us about the average 1 year's growth for a student would be at a 0.4. When we look at anything that could impact our students to help them grow more than 1 year's growth, that's where our key three comes in. So he looked at lots of different factors that impact student growth, 800 to be exact. That's a lot of different things that impact student growth and achievement. One area that stood out was intentional instruction. So the idea of taking your instruction from direct instruction to 30 kids and breaking it down into micro teaching. So breaking that class of 30 students into smaller groups that are more manageable, that you can actually personalize their learning for where they are. I know, Coyote, we were talking a little bit about how there's gaps in some of our 5th and 6th grade math achievement, gaps from 1st and 2nd grade. Those have to be filled. And the only way that a teacher can do that is in a small group setting. There's no way you can fill the gaps for 30 different kids in your classroom through direct instruction. So intentional instruction is that micro teaching, that small group intentional decisions that you're making for your kids every day. Another area that is super impactful for students in the classroom is quality feedback. So being able to look at the data, look at where our kids are, look at what they need, and be able to give them that feedback so that they can grow as well. It's also looking at data as teachers so that you can make more informed decisions and more intentional decisions in the classroom. If you look at just that one area of Hattie's research and you make some changes in the classroom just around feedback, the impact it makes was rated at a 0.7. That's almost 2 years of growth in 1 year for those students just by making that one change in your classroom. When we look at student agency, which is our third area of the key 3, you can see that self-reflection equaled 0.75. Again, almost 2 years of growth for these students when you make some changes in the classroom around asking kids to reflect on their learning, to reflect on their progress, to reflect on where they are as a learner. What are you struggling with? What are you doing well? Do you even know? That's important. Those are important questions to ask our kids. When you look at the impact that those questions have, that self-reflection piece, almost 2 years worth of growth. So when you look at these 3 key areas of personalized instruction, the impact that we could possibly make in the classroom is enormous. The amount of growth that we could see from our students is huge. So then going into what does personalized learning look like in HUSD? Beginning last spring, we formed PL leadership teams from every campus, and we created learning workshops, full day workshops, where we had our groups, our leader groups come from each campus and learned all about personalized instruction. What is personalized learning? What is it? What does it involve? What does it look like in the classroom? And then they were able to take that information back to each campus and be able to inform their teachers. We asked them in the fall, actually, to try one thing. So we then asked every single teacher in HUSD to try one thing in their classroom for personalized learning, because we had given them all of the instruction, all of the learning, all of the information that they needed to be able to make some changes in their instruction in their classrooms. We've been sharing our story as well along the way. So we have a website where we curate, and we are able to store all of our items around personalized learning so that teachers can access that and come back to it when they need to. I've also been creating newsletters every month that I send to the staff. And in those newsletters, we highlight teachers that do amazing things in their classrooms. So I was able to go into classrooms every single month and take pictures and talk to teachers and ask them, what changes are you making? What's the one thing that you tried? Or maybe like Miss Reese, she's been trying personalized learning in her classroom for a long time. So what are you doing next? What's the next thing you're going to be working on? Which she is phenomenal, by the way. I'm a little biased. She's my son's teacher, and we just love her to pieces. But anyway, so sharing our story. And the main purpose behind these newsletters is so that our staff can see that these amazing things are happening right here in Prescott Valley. It's not in Texas. It's not in New York. It's here. Our teachers are doing amazing things in their classrooms, and we want to share that with everyone. The biggest downfall I think teachers have is that sometimes they get in their own classroom and they shut the door and they're all by themselves and they feel like they're an island. And we aren't. We have so much expertise and so much knowledge in our district that we just need to share it. And then finally, our most important stakeholders, personalizing the learning for our students. So if If our educators can learn about what personalized learning looks like in the classroom and they can try different things out, they know the research behind it and what's important, and then being able to then take that directly to the classroom for our kids. This is one of my favorite quotes when we talk about personalized learning. It says, "Do the best you can until you know better. And then when you know better, do better." Because we're starting to know better. We know that our kids need something different than we've been providing them in the past. And we know what that is, and we can do that for them. So what impact does personalized learning have in HUSD? These are some of the things that our students are saying about PL. When we get time with the teacher, it's not usually with the entire class anymore, so it's easier to ask questions. Thinking about some of our kids who there's no way they're going to raise their hand when there's 30 of their peers sitting there, and they need help, and they know they need help, but they're not going to raise their hand. We need to be able to reach them in a better way. Another student said, "I learn the most when the teacher is engaged with us." A voice and choosing decisions in my education is important because it allows me to control a piece of the environment that I personally learn best in. Our kids know what they need. They need an environment that supports them. I love being able to really focus on things that interest me. And we'll talk about that in just a second, some changes that some teachers are making. When you aren't sure about something, someone else in your group might have a better understanding, which helps you accomplish more. So again, back to those small groups that are really helping our kids. So here's a little bit of feedback from Bradshaw Mountain High School. When they were asked, do you feel more engaged in your classes when you have options on how to demonstrate your learning? For example, choosing a final project at the end of a unit instead of being assigned one. 97% of our kids said absolutely, hands down, this is what we need. This is what we prefer. We feel more engaged when this is how our classes are taught. In another high school biology class, this teacher shifted her whole mindset on what assessment should look like. So when we talk about your typical traditional classroom and you think about 80% of your grade is assignments and 20% is one final exam, and I hope you're not sick that day because that is 20% of your grade and that's your only shot. When you think about that kind of a traditional setting, we're not setting up our students to succeed. We're setting them up to fail. She started thinking about the idea that my assessments really should be assessing mastery, not assessing effort, not assessing how I'm feeling that one day in time. And it's not a pass or fail. We want our kids to learn. We need to assess for mastery. So she started thinking about, okay, how can I change my final exam so that I'm actually assessing mastery for these kids, so that I'm helping them learn? And so she started thinking, okay, well, I can give them some multiple opportunities to be able to show me that they have learned the content. They can take the exam, and then what they don't get correct, I'm going to give them another opportunity to come back, complete some assignments, meet one-on-one with me, and then I'm going to give them another shot. It's not just a pass or fail one-time option. The student had to choose to do that, though. So she didn't make them. She didn't require them. If they were not happy with their grade, they had the option to come back and try again. So again, that shift in mindset of mastery versus effort or a one-time pass or fail. In 4 weeks, that same biology class, she saw a 6% increase in passing scores on her assessments. Just in 4 weeks. Just because she changed her mindset on how assessment should look in her classroom, which is personalized learning. In another classroom, right here in Humboldt, 8th grade math, this teacher was really, again, trying to figure out ways for kids to show mastery, but also ways for them to have some choice in how they show their mastery. So instead of having, again, one final exam at the end of a unit, he decided to leave it up to students to come up with a project that would show their learning, but they could choose a topic that interested them. As long as it met their requirements to show the learning, he said, I want you to have some choice. Go for it. See what you do. He took his Fridays, and instead of having direct instruction days, he met with them one-on-one. We're talking middle school, over 100 kids. He met and conferenced with them one-on-one. He gave them review options. They had choices. They loved it. And he was able to see some amazing growth. So in achievement, students scoring proficient or higher on district tests grew on average 20 to 30% in 1 year. We're talking about the one thing that he tried. Just the one thing he tried. When we talk about expected growth, that was a 5% increase in district testing. Actual or expected growth was 5%. So that's what we would expect to see. Actual growth was anywhere between 8 and 9%, depending on the class. And his honors class, their actual growth was 10%, double what the expected growth was. That's pretty amazing data. 5th grade at Coyote Springs, we're talking about the class that has the ASU Digital Prep program. They are using a program called Exact Path. You heard Haley Macy on the video. She talks about how she groups students. She looks at data every single day, which is hard to do as a teacher. And this program is an amazing resource to use to be able to do that easily every single day. She was able to see the percentage of students that tested approaching or higher grew 10% in 1 semester because she is personalizing the learning for her kids. The expected growth, so students are showing more than 50% higher growth than expected at this point in the year. They're smashing it out of the park. And then also filling in those gaps. The class that showed the highest actual growth was her co-taught class. Those are our kids that are on IEPs. They have another teacher that comes in and helps them. And they showed the most growth out of all of her students. That's pretty amazing. In a 6th grade class, math class at Lake Valley, this is also another class that has the ASU Digital Prep resource. He started grouping his kids as well. So last year, he was teaching direct instruction, whole group, all day long. He started grouping his kids, changed the way he was thinking about teaching and learning, and his students grew 12 points on the national percent ranking from beginning to middle of the year. 12 points on the national ranking, which is huge. And the nice part about Exact Path is that we have the ability to see that data. So that's one thing. 89% of his students showed significant growth. So what are our teachers saying about personalized learning? One teacher said, I feel like finally, for the first time in my career, I have the permission to do what's best for my kids. It's a pretty amazing statement for this day and age with our teachers. My new structure gives me one-on-one time with each one of my students, something I never thought possible. I was so hesitant to try PL in my classroom, but after seeing the difference in my students' learning, I will never go back. And then I feel like I'm finally meeting their needs today. Not at the end of the week, not at the end of the quarter where I see where they are at, every single day being able to see where they're at so that I can change my instruction for tomorrow to meet their needs. So moving forward with the right work, this was just some feedback that we got from one of our workshops with our teachers. After today's session, how comfortable are you in moving forward, moving this work forward? And it was a scale of 1 to 5. So you can see that 64% of our teachers that attended that workshop said they're ready to move this work forward. They're ready to take the next step and continue our work with personalized learning because they're seeing firsthand the amazing growth that it's having for our kids. So looking forward into what's next for personalized learning here in Humboldt, we have a workshop, full-day workshop planned for March 30th. It's called Reflect and Plan, where we're going to ask our PL leadership teams to come back again together and reflect on what we've been doing, how those try one things and new iterations are going, and then plan for the future. So we're going to be making some really concrete plans for 4th quarter and then again into next year. We are going to be introducing learning walks here in quarter 4. So learning walks are nothing new. They've been used for years and years, and even here in Humboldt, they used to be called instructional rounds. We're going to be changing them a little bit and framing them through a PL lens. So using specific tools and being able to collect specific data around personalized learning, and especially the key 3. It's going to look different at every campus because each campus has unique needs, and we want to make sure that we're personalizing the learning for our students, but we also need to personalize the learning for our teachers. Next year, we're going to be diving even further into learning walks, and what those look like and what information it can give us for our teachers so that they can continue to learn and grow. And next year, it's not going to be quite the full day workshops that we've been doing with our personalized learning leadership teams as we did this year and last year. It's going to be more personalized support specific to each site. Okay. And then finally, what impact could personalized learning have in our future? So I talked a little bit about the data that we're getting right now, that we have currently. But remembering that we've just asked our teachers to try one thing in the fall. That's all we've asked them to do. And we're going to be looking at, okay, so let's reflect on how that one thing went. Let's change it a little bit or try something new, and let's see what impact the next thing could have. So I want you to consider a couple of questions. What if the achievement and growth we've started to see already with just a few changes in our classrooms, what if that could be given time to compound? What does it look like in a year? The amount of growth in 4 weeks in one classroom was amazing. What does that look like in 2 years? What if teachers continued to shift their mindsets, not just what they're doing in their classroom, but the way they're thinking about teaching and learning, and share their new understandings with their peers each semester and each year? We talk about teacher retention and being able to support our teachers. This is huge. We need to be able to share that understanding with each other. And then what if our students continued their journey in co-authoring their learning, with their capabilities growing exponentially year after year? You talk about these kindergartners. I have a kindergartner. She's 5. When you ask her how to reflect on her learning, she gives you quite the stare. But think about what she could do 5 years down the road when she's been asked every year to make her own personal goals. What are you going to do to make sure that you know and that you're learning? What are you going to do in 1st grade? What does that look like in 3rd grade? What does that look like when she gets to high school? Her skills are going to be amazing with her own ability to keep track of her own learning. It's pretty amazing what we could imagine, the possibilities as we continue down this road of personalized learning in HUSD. So I want to leave you with one quote. I presented this at the summit, but it's still one of my favorites. Learning and innovation go hand in hand. The arrogance of success is to think that what you did yesterday will still be sufficient for tomorrow. Again, back to that idea of we know better, so we're going to continue to do better for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Board members, questions, comments?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
So what are you using? You mentioned Exact Path, and that's the partnership with ASU, right?
Correct.
Is that the only way you're tracking this data, which is very impressive, incredibly impressive numbers? But I'm just curious how you're tracking that growth. What are you doing to gauge it?
So that's just one resource that a couple of classrooms have access through ASU Digital Prep. So that is it's kind of a costly resource if we didn't have that access through ASU. It is just one data point that is amazing to see the difference. And the reason why it's amazing data is because we're seeing the difference from direct instruction to personalized learning, that shift in the whole way that the classroom runs. So that is an easy way for us to pull some data. Going forward with our learning walks, we're going to be using a tool that we created to be able to see what personalized learning looks like in each classroom, and we'll be able to collect data from that going forward, and that will be from every single classroom that we go into.
So is it like a weekly assessment to come up with these?
For the growth?
Yes.
So now, being fair, I haven't actually taught the Exact Path because I am not in the classroom right now.
Right.
But they, from what I understand, they do checks for understanding every single day.
Okay.
So those questions that they answer around what contents they're learning is how they're getting that data. And then I believe they do assessments every so often. Okay. So benchmark assessments 3 times a year.
So
for
this is
Exact Path.
completely separate from Galileo.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So thank you.
So I know that when we started this journey on personalized learning, we were all concerned about the assessment portion because the state does require certain assessment benchmarks, and so we wanted to make sure we satisfied that that goal from the state perspective. But we also wanted to know, what does this look like as personalized learning? What does this look like, right? And so we were very intentional about how that assessment happens and seeing the results of that, so we could understand and have a tangible, have evidence of the growth and markers that show our community and our teachers that the growth that is happening using personalized learning. So, for instance, one thing that they, do one thing this year turns into exponential growth in this classroom, and the teacher, that paradigm shift has to start so that they can understand, and then next year build upon that, and that it's a scaffolding approach to how they teach their class. And I just want to say to all of our teachers who are doing this, the commitment that it takes on a daily basis to check these benchmarks or assessments every night, to say, okay, today Haley was in this group, but tomorrow, she might need to move to that group because she's mastered this and is ready to move here, or maybe not. Maybe Bob needs to go to whatever. The commitment as a teacher that it takes to remember, not just for these 30 kids, but sometimes for 100+ kids, to remember the needs of all those kids is exponential. But also, I think from the teachers that I've talked to, it's really exciting because it is an opportunity for them to watch that growth happening real time. So they're not waiting for, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, and you can correct me too. They're not waiting for, the state testing or whatever assessment down the road. They're watching it happen daily in their classroom. So this personalized learning experience, like you were talking about with your first kindergartner, I am so excited to see what happens in 15 years with your daughter, because, and I hope that since you're the background, maybe you'll track this for her. I don't know. But I just think it would be a phenomenal study to see what that does for her growth, and how she approaches not just K-12, but how she approaches, her decisions after that. How she approaches her decisions beyond K-12 and how it prepares her. I mean, we are preparing students for jobs that don't even exist, right? We are preparing students for skill sets that employers are looking for that really don't have so much to do with, I mean, your employer can teach you to build the what's it, but they can't teach you to critically think. They can't teach you to problem solve. They can't teach you, like you said, to use that part of your brain to recall or to pull from, to really to do that kind of skills. Those are the skills that are needed, right? And so this approach to learning enables our kids to really go to a place that works for them individually, to say, okay, this is how I learn, and I get it, or I don't get it, help me, and the teacher can recognize that and say, okay, you're clearly, this isn't working, you're not getting it, let's try something else. So I hope that answered.
One thing I really have, it's been fun to see in classrooms as I talk with teachers, as they try this one thing, as they talk with me about their thought process and what they're changing and what they're thinking about. One teacher said, I hoped I was meeting their needs. I hoped I was getting through to my class, but I didn't really know until I had a chance to sit down with 30 different pieces, exit slips, and go over it. And that sometimes happened on a Friday evening. And so by Friday evening, I figured out that one of my kids didn't have it. They didn't have it all week. With changing the way we're we're teaching and learning in a classroom, being able to use that micro teaching model. I know today that he doesn't get it today, so that I can change my instruction for him tomorrow instead of 7 days from now.
and
And-
that takes an enormous amount of time, effort, and energy for our teachers. And so I would just want to give kudos and to our instructional specialists, because it is the professionalism and the just the enormous task that it takes to they're amazing. You're amazing, just truly. And I think that we don't give them enough credit. So it's really it's an exciting time to be a teacher if you look at it that way. It's an exciting time to be an HUSD.
I completely agree.
I like that. That could be, put that on the website. It's an exciting time to be. Mrs. Wilson, Miss Wilson, I thank you so much. What a great presentation. Thank you for being so detailed and so organized in the way that you presented that. It really helps, I think, board members get a much clearer understanding and picture of what personalized learning is. But we kind of know that, but how it's been progressing and how you've been rolling it out and how the district's been rolling it out in a way that I think gives people the chance to learn it, to embrace it, to take chances. And I know that's what it takes to do it. And then when you see the results and you see some of the data, then you know, okay. And some people will need to see that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they'll want you to show them, how this can really help, how it can work.
Right.
So I really appreciate it. A beautiful presentation. Well done. I appreciate you sharing your story in the newsletter to us as well. Thank you for doing that. I think it's really important. Part of that whole journey is to make sure that you share that story with people. And so much about this I really like. And I know it takes a paradigm shift for people that aren't used to this, that are more traditional in their outlook about education. And you know, that was me too at one time. So I understand that. I do. I love the piece. One example that I really loved, among others, was the mastery versus effort example. And that's a high school biology class, which is a perfect place to use that. I'm sure it can work at any level, but you said a key thing. The goal is for kids to learn. That's the goal. It's not gotcha. It's not about that. It's about kids learning. How can we get them to learn? Now they have to take some ownership of that to do that. But I think that is about creating a culture amongst the students as well. That once you learn that, oh, I can do this. Okay, well, maybe I will do this then. You know, I'm like, it's not, all is not lost.
Right.
And I can actually take ownership of my own learning and, oh, now I succeeded. How good does that feel? Right. So, because I had a kid just like that. And when he found the teacher that did that, that's what unlocked it for him.
Right.
So I can speak from personal experience. So I know that works. I know it. So it's wonderful. And I think we're just, starting out, right? We got a
Yes.
lot to do, lot to look forward to.
Lots of possibilities.
Yes. Yes.
Very exciting.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next item is our discussion item 7D, review of the current Auditor General report for classroom spending. And our CFO, Mr. Mike Tannehill, is going to present. Hello, hello, hello.
Oh, there we go. Can you hear me? I can hear me. Okay. So, Joe the Wizard behind the curtain, if you could pull up the Arizona Auditor General report for us. Yeah, that's it. All right. So, the first number that I want to draw your attention to that's something to be proud of is that our classroom spending is 68.8%, meaning that of every single dollar we get, 68.8 cents goes into classroom spending. Yeah. And that's a clap for our entire organization, our board, everyone. And if you look at the instructional piece, one thing that I want to point out to you is that our best year ever for instructional was in 2007 at 61.8%. The three numbers that go into classroom spending are instruction, student support, which is special services, it's ELL, sorry. And then of course it's instructional supports. And back in 2007, we didn't have instructional specialists. We didn't have as many AP courses. We didn't have the AVID program. We didn't have as many dual enrollment courses. All of those things take away from the instruction. They still stay in the classroom spending. They're still part of that 68.8. But ultimately, they wind up in student support and in instructional support as well. If you look at some of the districts around us, there's districts where their instructional piece is dipped under 50%, different things like that. If we talk about what non-classroom spending is, we are at 9.8% on administration. And just to give an example of that administrative cost, a lot of times people see administration and they think administrators. There's a lot of other things that go into that. A great example would be when we moved the data center 3 years ago. And if I was putting that one in right now, I would break it up and split code it, and I would only charge probably about 20 to 30% of that cost to the administrative category for all the support programs that we use up here at the district office. And then I would break it out by site, and that administration number would probably get about 0.5% lower when it's all said and done. But we can't go back 3 years and change that. Plant operations. If you look at the cost of the water bill, the gas bill, the electric bill, any construction project we've had and what those construction costs look like, 9.9%. Food service is at 5.9%, and then transportation is at 5.6%. If we compare ourselves to peer districts based on our socioeconomic class, when it's all said and done, our instructional spending is about $122 higher than our peer districts that we're compared to for size and economics. Our student support is about $186 lower, and our instructional support is $67. Our administrative cost, and again, with administration, we're in the 46th lowest state for administrative cost, and then we're on the low side of that as well. Our plant operations, again, are lower than our peer districts and neighboring districts. And then our food service is one of the only things that we're actually just a little bit higher on. And I'll show you a graph here. So again, we're on the low side of administrative, low side of plant operations. And then for food service, we're about 15 cents higher than like-for-like districts when it's all said and done. Transportation, we're on the very low side. And we're a district, when you look at us and compare us to some of those districts down south in Phoenix, where we have a very large geographic area when it's all said and done. All right. In this district, we talk a lot about John Hattie's research, and there's factors about John Hattie's research that we can't control. The factors that we can control are the ones that we tend to focus on. And right here is a commitment. And in my time in this district, it's the first time ever on the Arizona Auditor's General Report that Humboldt Unified School District, our average teacher pay is higher than the state average. And that's pretty exciting. And the last part of the Auditor General's report, if we compare ourselves to other districts, and if you look at John Hattie's research, one of the factors we don't always bring up as much as that socioeconomic piece, because as a school district, we can't go out there and fix that for other districts. We can't go out there and raise the pay of our parents and you would like to, we can't. But ultimately, if you compare us like for like to other districts that are in our peer group, we're beating them on both math, language arts, and science. So I'd like to just close with that 68.8 cents of every dollar we get is going directly into the classroom spending. That's a number to be proud of. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Tannehill, very much. Board members, questions or comments on the presentation on the State Auditor General report?
I just want to thank you for that. And I just want to, I remember, I think it was you, Mr. Ruwald, that made the comment a couple years ago. I forget how you said it. So we are doing more than anybody else with less money than everybody else.
I never knew I said something like that.
You did. It was very poignant. It was, see, even Mr. Minor remembers. See, yeah, see, that's right. We all remember. Yeah, because there you go. See, there you go.
Well, this is my favorite part of the year. Being a numbers nerd, I like to go through these. So I just wanted to point out a couple things that I think the community should really look at and see on this is how great of a job our administrators do with running a successful district. If you've ever run a business, you know an administration number under 10% is fantastic. And if you're running an administration number under 10%, it's pretty hard to be successful sometimes. And when you look at the success that we have with what we have, it's amazing. Not only are we above our peer districts in every category, we're at or above the state within a percentage, I think it was. So that's fantastic. The other thing that I want to point out is that some people might grab a hold of, oh, well, our teacher salary is going up too much because now we're above the state average. Our cost of living is a little bit higher than the state average here. So it should be well above the state average. So that's still not high enough. I just think this is available on the HUSD website too, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So anybody who ever questions where we're spending our money or how we're spending our money, go look at this because it shows that we are doing a great job with the finances that we are given, and you guys are being extremely successful with those dollars. And I just think it's fantastic what you guys are doing and how much you're getting bang for your buck for the taxpayer. The other thing I did want to mention is if our food cost is the highest amount because we're giving our kids good food, I'll take that all day long if that's the only spot where we're overspending. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rold. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Tannehill. Great job. Thank you for presenting this to us. We continue to do more with less, and we've been doing that for a while, and we're doing it better now than we were before. So that's what this shows. We're doing it on extremely low overhead and administrative costs, sometimes I think to a detriment almost, because we're asking folks to do 2 and 3 and 4 jobs, and that's hard to sustain for long periods of time. So that's something I think we need to look at. But as far as, you know, our commitment to putting dollars in the classroom, I think that's the HUSD way, and I think we'll continue to do that. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yep. Moving on to our action items. Action item 8A, second reading of the policy advisories 739 through 743. Superintendent Pottis, you've been so quiet this evening. I almost forgot you were here.
Yes. So this is second reading, and I just want to reiterate, it is in there, but policy, the first one, policy advisory number 739, we are not recommending, the administration is not recommending to adopt that policy. We don't teach that, we don't need it. 740, we are recommending to adopt that one, not because we need it right now, but if we ever depart from the YLN, we'll need that policy in place. And my fear would be is if we don't do it now and we drop out of YLN, and then the historical knowledge goes away and someone forgets that we need to do that at a later date. It doesn't hurt anything to have it right now. And then 741, 742, and 743 are compliance with federal guidance, where the administration is recommending to adopt this. Unless there's any other questions.
I do have a question, Superintendent Pottis. On the advisory 739, I know that we don't currently teach that in the district, but I did, after the initial reading, dig through the policies, and we do have a policy that does allow, I mean, there's some caveats to it, but there is a policy that does allow for sex education in the district. So as a belt and suspenders, I don't see any issue with adopting the 739.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Wolcott. Any other comments or questions on any of these policies in particular?
So I just had a question. Maybe clarify it for me again. So it says administration recommends approving in the event we are not a part of the Yavapai Library Network. So currently we give the YLN authority to vet the books for us. Is that kind of the understanding? Do you guys know?
Typically, no. Typically, it is our staff who picks and vets the books that we actually adopt. Yavapai Library Network does give guidance and suggestions and advice, and they certainly are a support to our library staff. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the library YLN does not do any ordering on our behalf. We do that ordering as HUSD employees.
So that policy then is just for items that we order, not items that are coming in.
Coming in meaning
Like just through the Yavapai Library Network.
correct. Yeah,
Okay.
no, this policy applies to us
Purchasing things.
new items.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Can I just wanted to clarify as part of, so for instance, like I see what you're saying with 739, but what this is approving is the exhibit for 739.
It's the exhibit, which is basically the parent permission slip.
It's
Right,
an
but we
exhibit
don't-
to a policy that we have adopted in our policies.
So we have 739 adopted
We
in our
have
policy?
we have IHAMB. If
Okay.
our policies are lettered and they're all crazy lettered. But
Oh, you noticed that.
that is the parent policy for
Yeah.
the advisory 739.
You're right. You're correct. Yep.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, and this is just an exhibit. So,
And that, again, it's just an exhibit. It's not policy itself. It's an exhibit that goes with a policy that we already have, as Ms. Wolcott pointed out.
Yeah.
And really, the exhibit is simply a sample permission slip that we could use.
Belt and suspenders. And going on record, I don't support sex education being taught in the district, but I would like to have that safeguard in place.
thank you. Thank you for that comment. I think it's an interesting discussion that I went back and forth with as well for the same reasons that you stated. It's like, well, we actually have the policy. In practice, we're not teaching it. This is just a permission slip, which doesn't change anything about what's happening in the schools right now.
Yeah,
But
no
yeah.
harm in having it,
No.
I think.
So I agree. If we have the policy, then I would be all for putting the exhibit with it, just so it's complete with what ASBA
And
has out there.
right, and the permission slip was something that was newly added, to that, probably for that exact reason, to make sure that there is a parent permission slip that goes along with that subject. So in that way, it makes a lot of sense, actually. So I think what we should probably do, given our discussion, is take each policy on its own and take a vote.
Mr. President,
Yes.
can I just clarify one thing? That the YLN does purchase on behalf of the district, but we do not, the YCFLD or YLN purchases, the district sends lists or curates lists or however you want to say it. We don't suggest, it's up to your approval. We just purchase because we get a big discount. So the district benefits from the discount. I just wanted to clarify.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on any of the policies at all? Okay, so what I'd like to do then is have a motion starting with policy advisory number 739. Do I have a motion on that policy advisory?
I move to approve policy advisory 739. You want me to read any more of it, or can I just leave it at that?
No, I think that's as presented
As presented
by ASB.
by ASBA.
I have a motion.
I'll second.
I have a second by Mrs. Walcott, a motion by Mrs. Roth. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now we're on to policy advisory 740.
So on that one, sorry, back to me. So there is some things happening in the legislature. SB 1700 was just passed through the Senate. And it's just back to like the explicit materials that can fall into school libraries accidentally, purposely, however you want to view it. So I just feel like this one needs a longer conversation or a bigger conversation. I know that we're knee deep in the superintendent search, but I don't know if this is something we can come back to or discuss further. Because we do have, the Alpine Library Network, I'm right now on their website, and through the shared catalog, you have access to 1 million plus items, even if you live near the smallest and most remote library. So it's just kind of a lot of information to that our kids have access to. And so I feel like this may be a longer or a bigger conversation than just this evening.
Well, and remember, this isn't a policy.
Right.
This is only the exhibit that goes with the policy.
Right.
So this is just like the last one. It's not changing anything on the policy. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I think matching the exhibit to be the policy that we already have in place is just like with the last one is what we should have in place.
Obviously, if something changes at the legislature, then we will. We'll get a new
right,
advisor.
get in there.
Yeah, we'll get a new advisory to
Yeah.
match that.
Alrighty.
So,
So I'll move to accept policy advisory 740 as presented by ASBA.
I'll second.
A motion by Mr. Royal, the second by Ms. Walcott. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Policy Advisory 741.
I move to approve policy advisory 741 as presented by ASBA.
I'll second.
Motion by Mrs. Roth, a second by Mrs. Walcott. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Policy Advisory 742.
I move to, is it adopt policy advisory number 742 as presented by the ASBA.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Walcott, a second by Mrs. Roth. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And 743.
I'll move to accept policy advisory number 743 as presented by ASBA.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Rual, a second by Mrs. Walcott. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
So Kate, remember, he made you do 5 different motions for that.
Board members, thank you for that. Thank you. Sometimes it gets a little dicey, so thank you for your attention to those. Moving on, item 8B, request for approval of the proposed salary increases. Just wanted to ruminate on that for a minute. For all staff. And I believe we have Mr. Tannehill and Superintendent Pottis.
Joe, could you put up the PowerPoint? So there are a number of different committees and groups out there that advise on financial issues and concerns that Mr. Pottis, myself, Mr. Minor, different folks are members of. And one of them is called, thank you, sir. One of them is called Guppy Mac. At a recent presentation of theirs, they put this up to start the meeting. I attended virtually. And for those of you too young to get the reference, that is Thelma and Louise and the cars driving off the cliff. And they started out by talking about the fiscal cliff. And there are definitely some districts out there that have reason to be pretty scared at the end of next year. We've been deliberate, we've been responsible, and we've used some of those ESSER funds a little bit more thoughtfully than some of them. We haven't put a lot of people into payroll. However, Prop 123 is dropping. That's the one where the voters voted to give us $1 billion in capital funds to maintain our buildings. And then the politicians and courts got a hold of it and they gave us less than half of that, and it goes away by 2026. Inflation, those of us that have gone shopping, purchased groceries, it's a thing, it's painful, it's hitting a lot of folks. And then they keep on hinting that there could be a recession, who knows, as well as our title allocations that are tied directly to our free and reduced, which is based on the parent's income. The Arizona minimum wage going up at a faster pace than the national poverty level means that our title allocations have slowly been dropping. Hopefully that reverses itself sometime soon. For us as an individual district, if we look at some of the budget hit considerations we have this year, our secure entrances, we're finally building secure entrances on the 5 schools that don't have them at the moment, and that's exciting. The board voted on that at the beginning of this school year. Our bus drivers, there's a national commercial driver's license shortage. It is so bad that Mr. Pottis became a bus driver. And I continue to try and start the rumor that the good Mr. Pottis is leaving us to either to go out on the open road and earn that big, yeah. I don't think it's true, but just the same.
You just love it that much, right?
Our trust insurance that Mr. Mo was talking about, that's demanding, well, not demanding, they're just raising our rates if we don't do multi-factor authentication. The liability insurance for our district continues to go up, and of course it's going to go up like inflation does. And as you see 8 and 9% inflation, that rate's going to continue to climb. Last year it was raised by about $136,000, and we'll see what it comes in at this year for next year's insurance. Kairos, they raised our insurance rate by 7%. Their overall raise was 7%. There were some districts that got as high as a 14%. And that's going to be about a $307,000 hit. Indirect costs, forest fees, and Medicaid reimbursements are all accounts that fluctuate as far as the amount of money we get. We don't get the same amount from them year in, year out. With indirect costs, as our title allocations drop a little bit, our indirect costs go down with that because those are the administrative costs that we remove from those title allocations. The forest fees, literally the number of people that go camping and pay those fees can influence how much money we get when it's all said and done. And then, of course, our special services is tied to the Medicaid reimbursements. Those accounts have been built up over a long period of time, and over the last few years, they've been somewhat depleted for various different reasons. One of them being that when we went to all-day kindergarten, the state only funds half-day kindergarten. So we've been taking some of those, the kindergarten teachers they've been split coded where half of that money is coming out of forest fees, half of that money is coming out of indirect cost. And we're moving that back into our main fund of M&O this year. And then, of course, there's the unfunded mandate of the minimum wage increase. If we add that all up, it comes to $2.4 million. Did you want to jump in, Mr. Pottis? Have anything to add? Okay. Fortunately, at the beginning of the year, the state increased our average, our ADM. They increased our biggest single fund, M&O, and they increased it by about $3.5 million. The Budge 25 were one of the few districts of the different CFOs that I talk to and confer with where we're in the position of our district is growing. There's a lot of them that have declining enrollment. At the end of the year, we'll be able to go ahead and revise and pick up another $550,000. So if we take that roughly $4 million and we subtract the 2.4, it leaves us with about $1.7 million in budget capacity to consider for raises. Our carry forward right now, this past year was at $2.5 million. Would like to see that continue to go up. If you look at all of the funds that we have about 100 funds on our books. There's larger districts that have 200-300 funds when it's all said and done. There's a possibility of 600. Not all of those funds get money, but 85% of our spending, 85% of our funding comes from M&O when it's all said and done. What is the single biggest expense of HUSD and pretty much every other organization out there? I was going to go with people and benefits. So salaries and benefits, you bet. And typically we spend between 82 and 86% of our money on salary and benefits. With our health insurance this year, we're going to renew with Kairos, and that 7% increase will be about $307,000 hit to the budget. The district per employee cost is going from $770 to $824. HSA plans will continue to get contributions for the difference if they go with those higher deductible plans. And the core plan will go from the employee paying about $70 a month to $100 a month. The raise for your consideration. Our current uncommitted capacity is just over 1.7 million. The classified salary schedule, the hourly salary schedule, every cell after cell one is going to get a 60-cent raise. The teachers, we're going to bring the starting pay to 41,000, and anybody that is eclipsed will get an adjustment, and then everyone else on the teacher salary schedule will get a 5%. The starting teacher and some of the first and second year teachers will get just a little bit more than a 5% to make us more competitive with the districts that surround us. The professional contract, the OTs, the PTs, the speech pathologist, the administrators, they will get a 5% pay raise as well. And that leaves us with an increase in carry forward in theory of $100,000. There's some things coming out of meet and confer that might come to the board at a later time, but that is our proposal at this time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tannehill. Board members, questions, comments? Just to um, let the public know, board members had had a chance to look at some of these numbers in small groups and sit down with Mr. Tannehill and Superintendent Potts and go through them in with a fine tooth comb, if you will, beforehand, which is helpful to us. Obviously, not in more than a group of two, and ask some questions. So, with that, board members, anything at all to?
I'm just wondering, well, first of all, thank you for all the work that you've done. I think you're doing a great job. I'm just wondering, when you say it makes us more competitive with our neighboring districts, does this the question just escaped me. I'm so sorry.
Okay, we can come back to it.
Yes, you might have to. Oh my gosh. So, I totally forgot. I lost my question. But thank you for all the work you've done.
So, Mr. Tannehill, thank you so much for all your work. Thank you
Question.
for the presentation, which I think is great. I love the presentation. I love the format of it because it is clear, I think, to most everyone. There might be a few acronyms here and there they don't quite know, but for the most part, I think the average person could understand this, even number challenged people like myself. And I appreciate being creative and looking for different ways to improve our budget now and in the future. I know you're doing that with the superintendent and the team. And I have been here when we were unable to offer any raises for years, 7 to be exact, Mr. Minor reminds me. I'm sure they do. And so the fact that we're able to offer a 5% raise and 60 cents to our classified folks is really gratifying to me. And it shows our appreciation to our staff, which we have a ton of appreciation for all the work that you do every single day. And to be able to demonstrate that in financially is, of course, everybody likes to be compensated for their work. And we have professionals working in our district that need to be compensated appropriately. So much appreciated. I, for one, am totally in favor of this and looking forward to the future when we can continue to do this for folks.
I just wanted to say thanks, and I think it's real important. We were just talking about the yes, and how well we're doing with it. I think you mentioned the ESSER money, how a lot of districts are paying salaries out of that. That ends, and that's something that we've stayed away from, so that we don't run into that issue. We're actually getting stuff done, one-time purchases with it, so that it doesn't hurt our salaries and our staffing. And so to be able to do this and still be putting $100,000 about in our wallets for a rainy day is again a good example of financial management. So thank you.
One other quick question. Obviously, you know, not everyone is here at this meeting tonight and or watching. Do you and the superintendent have any plans to go out and do maybe some sort of education with the staff about our financial picture, a little bit of a road show, if you will, on that? We've done that in the past. That's why I asked.
Yes, and we actually started up road shows in the third quarter, and we got to about half the sites, and they were scheduled for Wednesdays because that's when we have the time. And then we had nothing but snow days endlessly. For
Every
those
Wednesday
Wednesdays.
for what?
Yeah. But yes,
7 out of 8 weeks. Tuesday night into Wednesday. Because we were here too some of those nights, right? Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I think the staff really appreciates that. You know, really being included in that. And understanding it and being able to just sit and ask questions. So that's great. I appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Where'd it go? Okay. So this is an action item. We do need a motion to approve these increases.
I move to approve the proposed salary and hourly wage increases as presented.
I second. Oops, all right.
No.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Wolcott and a second by Mrs. Mazzone. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you again. 8C, request for approval of the exterior weatherization of the Mountain View Elementary School. Mr. Minor.
Thank you, Board President Adler, Superintendent Pottas, members of the board, distinguished guests. We talked about, I brought this up earlier in the year, but when asking money from the SFB, it sometimes takes time and there's a process. So I'm real excited to bring to you guys today that the project award is contingent, obviously, of funding from the DSF. I like to call it School Facilities Board. For the Mountain View Elementary Weatherization Project was issued on February 7th of 2023, and 184 vendors were notified via the prospective bidders list. And they were notified via azpurchasing.org, which serves as the district's official website for these types of opportunities, and where all solicitation documents were publicly available. The district also published a public notice the same day in the Daily Courier, which is the official newspaper of Yavapai County. A non-mandatory pre-bid conference was held on February 16th of 2023 at the school site, which was followed by a site walk with 6 of the contractors in attendance. 2 amendments were issued to clarify the contents of the bid. 4 bids were received in a timely manner for both projects before the deadline for receipt. Each bidder was verified to have current Arizona Register of Contracts license and active status with the Arizona Corporations Commissions, and no exclusions or debarments or suspensions recorded with the Arizona Department of Administration State Procurement Office. And the subcontractors' licenses were also verified for the apparent low bidder. The tabulations you can see in the packet found below is a resultant from the virtual public bid that opened on March 9th. Bids were due electronically by 10 a.m. Mountain Time, local Arizona time. The public opening was scheduled at 10:30 a.m. and the pricing was read aloud for public in attendance. As you can see from Caliente Construction, Edge Construction, JBS Contracting, and LOR Construction, for the requirements outlined in the solicitation and overview provided herein, the recommendation is to award the contract to Caliente Construction as the lowest responsive and responsible bidder in the amount of $245,660, which includes all bonds and required taxes. And remind you again that this is going through the State Facilities Board. This is not costing the district a dime.
Thank you, Mr. Minor. Board members, questions or comments?
I would just like to say, Mr. Minor, I don't know who you know at the School Facilities Board, but you better leave their name and number and everything that you know about them that is super important on your desk. Because I have never seen in all the years on the board somebody get so much done with the SFB. And I appreciate everything that you have done in the last 2 years. It is phenomenal. And this is just one more feather on your cap for the SFB. I don't know how you did it. I mean, for years it was like, well, that's on the list, and they, when we're lucky if they'll call us back. I don't know how you're a charmer. Seriously, you got to write down who you're talking to.
Can I put a dollar value on that? And just let everyone know that Mr. Minor has brought in about $6 million in SFB projects.
Yeah.
That are like this, that our buildings need, that we don't have to spend our $6 million.
Yeah.
So kudos to Mr. Minor.
Yeah.
I agree.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Superintendent Potts. No, thank you. Appreciate
Absolutely,
that.
100%. Thank you very much.
I appreciate that, but I do want to let you know that it's about a need. You got to show the need. And I just want to explain this, and Kim will laugh at this, but there's something called a Ryland test, where they take a pipette and they take clay and they stick it up to the brick wall and they pour water in it, and it should hold for 5, 6, 15 minutes. And then maybe when we were there, it was just going right into the brick. So it's documenting, it's showing the big need that we have for a building. and then playing on their hearts.
But you've done this over and over with projects over and over and over again. And the way you put together the story and whoever you're talking to, it's really phenomenal and so appreciated. So
Oh,
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I want to please make sure that Jeanette Arnson, that you understand that Jeanette
Yes.
is big behind this in terms of building those relationships as well
Yes.
as Ray Rosario.
Yes. Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. Court, you're the $6 million man.
There you go.
Yeah. There's another dated reference, right? Oh my God.
That's
I'm so
funny.
old.
President Adler, with inflation, I think it's about $10 million man now. I think.
Yeah, there you go. Right, exactly. Oh gosh. Well, fantastic job. I agree with everything Mrs. Roth said. That these are really important projects, and you figured out how to get them.
I apologize, but I do want to let you know this is one of 3 that'll be coming your guys' way
Okay.
in the next.
Don't apologize.
No, don't
Couple months.
apologize.
Don't apologize.
And
Thank you.
I also want to thank Mrs. Arnson and Mr. Rosario.
For sure.
I know
Absolutely.
I know it's always a team effort.
Yep.
So with that, we need a motion on this item.
I move to award the Mountain View Elementary School weatherization project to Caliente Construction Incorporated in the amount of $245,660, which includes all bonds and required taxes.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Roth, second by Mrs. Mazzone. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, item 8D, suspend policy IC for snow days. Superintendent Potts.
Thank you, President Adler. So it was a rough third quarter, weather-wise. And as Mr. Adler pointed out, we had a 9-week quarter, and 7 of those 9 weeks were impacted at least one day by snow. And 5 of those weeks, we had school cancellation for an entire day. So policy IC follows a state statute that requires that a school be in attendance for 180 days during the school year to count as a full school year. We've been working with the state, as have other school districts, as we've discovered. We've been working with the state on the state has a mechanism where we can, I keep on calling it convert. If we suspend our policy that requires 180 days, we can convert our school year from a day-based to a seat-hour-based time clock. And so rather than having a state statute does, when it talks about how much school you have to provide during the school year, it has 180 days, but it also has that Carnegie seat time. It has a certain number of seat hours that you have to make sure that your students have. And both of those are in policy. And so we've been working with the state on converting, and rather than counting 180 days, just convert and make sure that we have enough seat time for our students. That still follows state law. And we do have enough seat time. And so what we're asking the board to do is to suspend policy IC that requires 180 days. That then allows us to finalize with the state to this calendar year, then the school year, is we won't count it for 180 days. We'll just track our seat time to make sure that our students have enough seat time, and they will, to still warrant a full school year for our students. So.
Thank you, Superintendent Potts. Questions or comments on this? Anyone? So just a quick question, just to clarify for the board and for everybody. So when you count time rather than days, you do that by school, by site. Each site has to demonstrate that there's been enough seat time. Elementaries, middles, high schools.
Yeah, the state has that listed by grade bands. There's a kindergarten, and I forget if it's K1 or if it's just kindergarten, but there's a kindergarten or K1, and then there's a 2-6, and then there's a middle school of 7-8, and then there's a high school, a 9-12 component. And each one of those grade bands has a certain number of seat time. And so we just, working with Marshall in our IT department, every school has its bell schedule. And so
Right.
Marshall just calculates based on the bell schedule how many, and all of our K6 elementaries have the same amount of minutes in a day. All of our middle schools have the same amount of minutes in a day. So it's actually a fairly easy calculation because we're consistent among our elementaries, middle schools, and high school.
And we're fine on all three.
Yes, we're up
Areas.
fine on all three.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, board members, if there's no further questions, we'll need a motion on this.
I move to approve to suspend policy IC through June 30th, 2023.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Mrs. Walcott, a second by Mrs. Mazzone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And finally, action item 8E, which is roll call. What did you? Yeah. Roll call for. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The reason we're doing that, the suspending policy IC, is that so we don't have to make those days up. Without doing this, we'd be talking about that week after school's out, asking our staff and our parents to bring their kids back to school for 5 days. And I would rather not do that. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that. I think we knew that, but I appreciate the clarification. Yeah, that's kind of a big deal. Yeah, thank you. Okay, now we're on to item 8E, which is the roll call for the annual financial reports. SARP, USFR, CQ, and ACFR. Is that every letter of the alphabet or almost? Okay. Mr. Tannehill, can you talk about this new item?
It's a new requirement this year. It's already listed on our district webpage. It's on the state's webpage as well, but they want it to be part of your board minute meetings that you were present and received. And there's digital copies attached. The USFR compliance questionnaire, as well as the annual financial report and the single audit. Man, I'm going to trip myself up. Sorry. Can't talk.
You just say SARP.
Yeah. And of course, we have probably 15 agencies that we upload and send those different reports to at the federal, state, and different levels.
Great. Thank you. And just to clarify, these are all reports that we always complete every year, correct?
Yes, and they've just added the extra step that
That
we make
need
it part
to
of our meeting.
Yeah, okay. Just to clarify that. These are not new reports. Every year we have a company that comes in and does an audit and completes these reports for us. And then they call the board president and ask them some questions to make sure there's nothing nefarious going on. That being said, board members, any questions or comments? So what we'll need to do then is we'll need a motion, and then we'll need to do a roll call vote. So first I will need the motion.
Is it just to accept the reports?
Yeah, motion to,
I move to accept the
Points.
annual financial reports as presented
by roll call vote.
by roll call vote.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, I have a second. So, I'll start with Ms. Mazzone. Just say yay or nay to accept.
Yay.
Ms. Walcott,
Yay.
Ms. Raw,
Yay.
Mr. Ruhl,
Yay.
myself, yay. Okay, that's the roll call vote. We've accepted all three of those. I believe that's all we need to do. My first time doing this too. That's the roll call vote. We did all three, so we don't have to do them separately. Okay, thank you, board members, for that rather awkward moment. Announcements, next scheduled board meetings. April 11th is a regular meeting right here, and May 9th is a regular meeting right here. And just to reiterate, we do have a community forum next Thursday evening here to give some feedback and input on the superintendent search. And that information will appear on the website tomorrow, in addition to other places around the community. With that, I need a motion to
I move
adjourn.
to adjourn.
I have
Oh,
a question.
oh.
I'm very, very sorry. So apologies to everybody. I should have brought this up at the very beginning. Back to the consent items. Are we able to make changes? I feel like we are not. So I was going to bring up some typos in private, but it dawned on me that we just approved it as it, is currently. So I think I should probably point them out. So apologies for not doing that earlier. This is for 6H. It's for a job description. I noticed some typos that I think should be fixed before this is posted.
So Ms. Walcott, what I
Yes.
think you should probably do is get with the person, get those typos corrected. I don't think it changes the essence of what we approved.
Perfect.
So I think we're fine.
I'll do that. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say as long as there's no change to the content.
Yeah.
by
The
typos.
substance is perfect. They're
Okay.
just
Yeah.
little
Okay.
typos.
Yeah. Appreciate the proofreading.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
One
Sorry.
half in my own heart.
Rich loves the
Yeah,
proofreading.
right? Now we can take a motion
Move that we
to
adjourn.
adjourn. Motion made by
Second.
Mr. Rule,
Second.
second by Ms. Roth. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.